Lorna, and today we're going to be talking about texture with polymer clay. So I have rolled out, and sometimes just squished out, some polymer clay here, and I have a variety of things that I'm going to be using to texture my clay. So I have everything from an L wrench, also known as a hex wrench, screwdriver. This is a recycled piece of a potato bag, so red potatoes. I have some pasta. These are just little wheels. Some bubble wrap from a bubble mailer. A piece of lace. Some elbow macaroni. An artificial flower. You could use real flowers, but real flowers are a one-time use. This you can use over and over again. In a little ball of tinfoil. This is a great way to think about things that would normally go into the landfill, into the trash, and reusing them for art projects, because a lot of these things you can also use to paint with acrylic paint, or go in with some crayons and do a resist. There's all sorts of things that you can do with these items that may not necessarily be used for art. And not just these items, but you can make prints out of anything. You could take a little kitty chip clip and press that into some clay, and that would be really cool. You could roll over some yarn and see what you get there. There's limitless options. I've done a few videos where I use a paintbrush to add texture to polymer clay, but I'm just gonna go over a few of my favorite things. So I'm gonna go one by one and push those out of the way. So the things you're going to need are polymer clay. If you just wanted to test this out and not bake it, you could also use a modeling clay for this, just to play around, or a paper clay might work. Air dry clay would work as well. So I just have this artificial flower, and you're gonna need a rolling pin, as well as some tweezers. The tweezers are optional, but pulling some of these items out of the clay after you have rolled them in there can be a little bit tricky without them, especially if you're as graceful as I am. So I'm just going to place my flower where I want it. If you did a larger slab, or say one of the bowls, we do have a polymer bowl tutorial on our channel as well that this would work great for. You could position it wherever you want. I'm just doing some little sample sizes here so that you can get the general idea of what it would look like. So I'm just going to take my rolling pin, and I'm gonna roll from the center out onto my clay. I wouldn't use a really thin piece of clay for this because you're going to be rolling it with this. So I would start a little bit larger than 1/4 inch, or whatever your clay recommends. So I'm just going to roll those leaves, those petals, right into my clay. And I'm rolling from the stem outwards on all the sides. Then I'm just going to take this part and push in so that the center part gets marked, because I can't really roll over this with my rolling pin. I'm just going to gently push. Now this has a nice part for me to be able to pluck out of my clay, so that's how I'm going to grab it. And now I have a flower. Pressed into my clay, and you can see some little imperfections. That's just because I didn't roll out my clay very cleanly before doing this, but for your final piece you would want to do that. Now this is a great technique if you're going to be using a luster dust or a mica powder, because you could just dust the tops, and then the indent that you have here would remain pink. So I could put like a black eyeshadow, even works for that, a black eyeshadow over top, and you would see those lines. Now this is a very subtle print. You could go harder. I'm gonna flip it over. Push down deeper and really roll that clay, and it will give you a deeper impression. So it depends on how deep and how distinct you want the mark to be. Maybe you want it to be subtle. Maybe I want to say that there's a flower here, and you can see it's really stuck in there. So I'm gonna need to pull out my petals one by one. Just lift those out. The tweezers are gonna help me get underneath without damaging my clay. If you were to do this with a real flower, I would suggest baking this with the flower right in it. Of course, it's going to be a one-time use and your flower will be no longer usable. But I would bake it with it in there, and then you can just wash the flower out with some water afterwards, or with leaves or whatever. You don't want to leave like a stick in there because the stick will get baked in. So you can see that is a way more distinct flower because I pressed significantly harder. Oh, that's a really good. And this is just a subtle way to add some texture and some interest to a piece that is all one color. And again, you could take your mica powders and go over that. So moving on, I'm just going to recycle this clay for another project. So when you're experimenting with textures, you don't have to keep the pieces that you make. You can just roll it up and try again, or try it with something else. A lot of the pieces that I use for practice have been reused from other projects, and they're just hanging out. So I'm gonna get a nice smooth surface here by rolling over. I'm gonna go in with my tinfoil. So tinfoil is a fun one because you could shape it like a cube by just pressing the corners, and you could get little square marks. You could make a triangle or a diamond, do a little triangle, right? And you can make a triangle stamp. So the possibilities with this are limitless. So I think the triangle is gonna be cool. So I'm gonna shape that just a little bit more, and I'm just pushing in so I have 3 sides. The more you condense this, the smaller the texture is going to be. So if you plan on doing a looser triangle, you can just take your tin foil and form it into a triangle to begin with. Okay, so I think that's gonna be cool. And I have a few different sides that I can texture with, which is really fun. But I'm just going to take this like a stamp, and I'm gonna press it into the clay. And I'm just going to press and kind of give it a little wiggle. I'll do a couple. Press and give it a little wiggle. And again, how hard you press is how deep these impressions are going to be. And so that just gives you a little abstract texture there. Now you could do the whole thing, and you could use different sides if you just want it to be textured. And again, this would be really cool with some gold, like luster dust or something, or even some copper luster dust would look really cool with this. And that's a really great way to just add some texture to your clay. Right now, I think this would be really cool just to cut out and make a pendant out of. I think that would be a really interesting thing, or even texturing the bottom of a bowl with this and then rolling the rest into a bowl. So next up, I have this lace. A lot of our students that work in the ceramics department might know what I'm about to do next. We do this with lace quite often. Doilies are a really great thing to hold on to for this. Just keep in mind that whatever you're using, if you're using lace or a doily, you don't want to use something that you're going to try and wear or reuse for another purpose. This is going to forever be a polymer clay piece of lace, and that's just because the clay gets stuck in there and you can't really wash it so easily because this is an oil-based plastic and you don't want to put it through the wash. That goes for the same as using food utensils or anything that is meant for eating, like forks. If you use that fork for polymer, you definitely want to make sure that that fork remains only for polymer. I would label it because it can be kind of toxic, so you don't want to eat it. Same with your cookie sheet. You want to make sure that the baking sheet you're using, you only use for polymer. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put my lace on top of my slab. And my slab is about 1/4 inch thick. It's going to get a little thinner, but not much. If you want your thickness to remain 1/4 inch, make it thicker to start. You could even start at 1/2 inch and just keep rolling until it's 1/4 inch. Most polymer clays like to be baked best at 1/4 inch. Okay, so I'm going to roll. And I'm putting medium pressure over my slab, and I'm gonna go in different directions here. And I'm just gonna keep rolling until I see the black starting to get sunk into my clay. And you can see there that the white is starting to come up because my lace is starting to disappear into the clay. That's what I want. This lace isn't the most interesting, it's just what I had on hand. There's some lace that you can get that has pretty floral designs. You can get ones that have rainbows and bears and all sorts of stuff. So I'm just gonna pull this out slowly because I don't want to tear my lace. And like I said, you're gonna have a lot of polymer in your lace. If you want, this can be a one-time use, or you can clean this out very carefully, and most of the clay should come out. Okay, so this is a really fun one because it gives you a variety of textures. Like there's the flower there. This almost looks like some lizard scales. Just a bunch of different variants in there. It's a great way to texture. And to get this off, I would actually recommend, if you're texturing on a 3-dimensional piece, you won't have to worry about this, but if you're texturing to make jewelry, I would do it on a piece of parchment paper, cut it out, pull off the scraps, leave it on the parchment paper and bake it that way. Then you can just pull the parchment paper off after it has baked. You could use a regular piece of paper if you don't have parchment paper, but you may have to dissolve the paper backing with water. You can get it up like I'm doing here, but it will warp the clay a little bit, and then you could shape it. So it's pretty forgiving. You don't want to touch your texture too much because it will lose the print. Okay, so next up I have some pasta. I have my little noodles, and some things are multi-texture, so I can get a lot of uses out of this. I can put my pasta on and kind of roll it in. I'm gonna need my tweezers to pull that guy out. Or I can take my pasta and use it for the little round openings and make lots of little prints that way. There's so many different types of pasta that this is a really fun one. Like you can get some like star-shaped ones or rigatoni and roll it into your pasta. I would show you that, but I just don't have any of that pasta right now. Some little elbows. I like the way that the elbows have that little rainbow swirl almost. Push some more in there. Just a little rainbow swirl there. That's a really cute one. And if you did it, you could make it like a scalloped edge. Let me show you. Again, this is some recycled clay here. That's why it has all sorts of strange marks in it. So you could actually take multiple pasta, line it up for accuracy, press those in. I'm gonna pull that guy out, press that in. So with 2 pasta, you can really get some cool stuff. So this almost makes a little scalloped edge there. Pretty cool. This one's really great because bubble wrap is like really horrible for the environment, and we have tons of it, and it comes with everything whether you want it or not. Every package you order, every bubble mailer, they all come with it. Some of them are biodegradable now, which is great, but some of them not so much. So using them for art, like a lot of mixed media pieces, these make really great texturing tools for acrylic paint, and they make really cool little backgrounds for art. So I'm just going to put this bubble side down. Some bubble wrap will have two sides. This one only has one side. So I'm going to put it bubble side down, and I'm just going to roll. And then I'm going to pull out my bubble wrap. And you can see I have perfectly spaced circles and just a really funky, cool texture. This would be great for like an underwater scene, for like some scales, maybe a turtle backing or something, or little turtle paws. Cute. And next, I have this white, and I am going to do the potato bag. So the potato bag is plastic, again, not super great for the environment. So I am just going to press that on where I want it. This would be great with like a strawberry pot, you know, the little green ones, that you could cut pieces out of that and use that. Kind of has a little bit of a square, kind of a checkerboard pattern. And I'm just gonna roll that guy in. And I'm rolling this one pretty hard because I want the squares to be pretty deep in there. My white clay is a little bit on the mushy side. Not sure why. Maybe it's the brand. Pull that guy out. And then I just have some cool squares. You can smooth out any little texturing bumps that you don't like as well by just tapping them. Saving the best for last. These are my favorite three that I have coming up here. So I have another pasta one. These are wheels. And these are another multi-use texturing tool. And again, you can just have like a sandwich bag or something with all of these little bits and bobs in there and keep it with your polymer clay. That's what I do. So I just have a piece of clay that's all rolled out. And you can, as you imagine, put your little wheels directly on there. And they look like flowers. They're so cool. I'm gonna do 3 little flowers. And you could combine these with other textures as well. You don't have to keep to just one. So there's those. I pressed in at different depths. So this one's pretty shallow, this is medium, and then this is pretty far in. So the amount of pressure that you're using will determine the look. I think I like the medium one the most. But it's a flower with little ridges around it. It's just so, I just love it so much. And then it also has this little ridge, like a rigatoni, and you can use that to make lines, like a border, by just rolling your pasta along. It looks like little tire treads, or maybe it's little grass. I think this combination of having the little flowers with this border is quite sweet. And then the next one, so I love IKEA. I go there all the time, and every time you buy something, you get an Allen wrench. You can also get these for a variety of other things as well. They sell them in sets for like $1.50 in varying sizes. They're just great tools in general, and they fit a hex bolt, which is why they have this shape. And then on the other end of this one, I actually have a screwdriver. So it's just a little Phillips screwdriver there. So you could use two tools, you know, if yours doesn't have this. But I like this one because it's a multi-tool. Multi-tools save space. Okay, so for this one, the Hex Wrench, I have some yellow because this makes a wonderful honeycomb pattern. So you can line up your hexes. And make a little honeycomb stamp. Now this would be really sweet, again, if you just made a little container and then just did a few of these, maybe made a little Sculpey bee for the side of it. That would be so stinking cute. This would also be a really nice fashion piece if I did this all in here, maybe put some gold luster on it. It could be a really nice pendant or earrings, maybe little bees with some of these honeycomb hanging off of them. Lots of ideas for that one. Now the other side, I just have some black. Oh, my white is super gooey. Okay, and use that side. This one makes little X's. I really like simple patterns like the X's and the hex that we have here. It means it has 6 sides because you can really add them together and make some cool patterns. So this almost looks like, I don't know, like leather with the black there with the little, it looks like it's tufted fabric or something. Make a little Sculpey couch or something would be really cute. Or a little stool for a dollhouse. Would be adorable too. So these are just a few of the items that you can use for texturing, and some of my favorites that I like to use for texturing. But I invite you to go around your house and look for things that you think will make cool textures. Try it out. Again, make sure that it's not something that's going to be damaged or something that is for food and you're going to have to clean it to reuse. So try and find things that are normally destined for the trash or the landfill, or things that we can recycle are really great options for this. But I've known people who use garlic presses and things like that because they're a more affordable option than the ones that you can buy in the store. So you go ahead and experiment, use things like pennies to make prints. That would be really cool. Different kinds of brushes, or a fork or a spoon. Just make sure that they're only Sculpey only. And if you do try out any of these, or if you find a really cool texture, go ahead and let me know, and I'd like to see it on our Instagram page at WA_mixed. And I'll give you a shout out as well if you share your artwork with me. So thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Have a wonderful day. Bye.